Laidback Luke, welcome to the DJ City UK lab. Very, very honoured to have you here. We're going to talk about some old school gear in a minute, some retro tech. But first of all, tell us about your current setup, what you're rocking. It's a pretty futuristic setup, right?
Yeah, and I lovingly call it my tiny DJ setup. Comes in a wallet, and it's basically 4 decks and a mixer in one. And yeah, so it runs on a power battery, 10,000 milliamp, which gives me about 2.5 hours of mixing. Plus, it charges my phone while I'm playing. We'll get back to the phone. But yeah, multi-layered mixer and decks in one. Cue points, the play area, the transport area. My inspiration for this was actually, how can I get the full Pioneer and Denon setup like into a small size unit? Today I'm playing here at a festival, and there's this pet peeve I have with people touching my equipment. And with this setup, it doesn't happen. No one is breaking my knobs. I know everything is functioning because I bring it, and I can literally do anything on here except scratching. I think it's also important to note that I love DJ Pro algorithms, DJ Pro software, and I was getting addicted to it while I was DJing with my Denon setup, where I was like, I'm using the phone now to implement stems, and this was, mind you, 3 years ago, where I found out you were able to mix with stems, and DJ Pro was the software, and I was like, how can I get this into a unit? And Reloop had sent me their first Mixtour, and I connected that to my phone, went real seamlessly, and tested it out, and I was like, wait a second, this is the thing. I remember when Tractor came out, and I remember all the techno DJs having such units, and I was like, this is great, but I kind of want it to feel like a Pioneer setup or a Denon setup. And so I set out to make a unit like that.
All right, so this is your futuristic setup that you're rocking in 2025. Are you up for judging some of my retro DJ tech?
Oh, I'm so excited. Yeah, let's do this.
So here we have a Pioneer, not even Pioneer DJ at that point, a Pioneer CDJ500S. Do you have any memories of these from around this time?
My beauty, we reunite. This was a revolution in my sets. So I actually used to carry this in my sets while I was still DJing on vinyl. And honestly, this was the inspiration for me to switch over to a full CDJ set. So when I bought this unit, actually before this I might have been on a CDJ100, I just noticed that there was a pitch fader on there. It could pop in CDs. It's a legit CD player. And I was like, wait a minute. So do you mean to say that if I have a new track and I burn it onto a CD, I can play it immediately? Because in those days you would need to ship a DAT to have a dub plate being cut, and this was just like, okay, so I just burn it from my laptop or from my computer, pop it in, and I could instantly test out my new tracks. And so yes, I've DJed with this a lot. We have the first loop section here, and amazing times on this. I have such great memories on this, and probably some of the classics, I tested out first in an actual club environment using one of these.
So here we have a slightly less successful CD deck, the Technics SL-DZ1200. What are your thoughts on this one? Did you ever play on these?
I've played on here professionally probably once or twice, and I remember when it came out, and I thought this was going to be it, because we were in a transitional phase of going from the SL-1200s to CDJs, but the jump to CDJs was too big. And so this was somewhere in between, where it was like, yeah, this is an actual Technics player, but it reads CDs. And I'm a super big fan of the techno DJ Dave Clark, and he was rocking these. He was very adamant about these, and wherever he went, he had these on the rider, and he would do the same exact tricks as he used to do on vinyl and everything. And so he rocked these out for a couple of years, and I always enjoyed him playing with these. And I'm actually sad that they never broke through and it eventually became CDJs. One of the main reasons was that this was a motorized... Does that still work?
I don't think it does.
Ah!
This one's broken.
Yeah, this is a motorized platter. This was revolutionary. It was always such a buzzkill to be on CDJs and not seeing the platter rotate. And this one had that. And so I'm sad that this didn't break through. But also it was very laggy and had a couple of bugs. And it's still a beautiful piece of hardware.
So there's a video of you performing on the RMX 1000 from about 13 years ago, which came around much later than this one. This is the EFX 500. Do you remember anything about this one?
So yeah, you're right. Not particularly about this one because I was in the launch of the RMX 1000 Pioneer. I was like the spokesperson for it. So I was very much involved into the development of that as well. And this was the predecessor. And I remember it was around and there were a couple of DJs doing some really cool tricks on them. I'm not sure if James Abila was rocking this out in every set. But obviously it took the effects from the Pioneer mixer onto its own unit, and compared to the RMX 1000, it has a little bit more of a limited range of things, but very proper. All the things you want to do on a Pioneer setup is here. Yeah, so no, unfortunately, I didn't have the time to rock this as much, but definitely a blueprint for the RMX 1000.
Do you use many effects in your sets now with the Mixtour Pro?
Currently, I don't really use a lot of effects because it's kind of like hidden, and we need to fix that in the future. But to be able to have the effects hands-on like this, everywhere, every button is an effects, is great.
So this is like the oldest mixer I own. It's from the, I think, early 90s, maybe? It's pretty ancient. It was Realistic, which was a brand that was sold by Radio Shack in the US and Tandy here in the UK. So you may not be familiar with this particular one, but what was your first DJ mixer and how does this compare with that?
Well, like many people of our generation, I started with Numark on some Sound Lab belt drive.
Yes, DLP1 gang, all day,
yeah,
that's
well,
me.
there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. And obviously I wasn't that back, because indeed, stereo disco mixer. I can imagine the disco DJs blending like this. When I was coming up, the DJs in the Netherlands were using the a-trak mixers. And they had these long faders. We would call them, lovingly we'd call them, how do you say that in English? Like not slices of bread, but the whole bread, but the
loaf.
A loaf of bread. Yeah. Yeah, and so the faders we call a loaf of bread, and they were super long. And I even the DJs that I grew up listening to were also trick DJs, and they were just mixing those loaves up and down. And so, yeah, but this reminds me of those early days where it's like you get these pieces of gear and you actually don't really have a use for it other than straightforward blending like this. And obviously in this day and age, you miss all sorts of like, where's the effects, where's the EQs, but this was it back then.
The Mixtour Pro does have a crossfader, but obviously you're not scratching with it. Do you actually use a crossfader when you mix?
I do, and mind you, DJ Pro came out with the whole crossfader effects, which is brilliant, and you can use that on Mixtour Pro as well. And I still use the crossfader for fader cuts. I still love doing fader cuts.
Okay, so we were talking about Numark being your first mixer. Is this kind of close to that Numark that you had?
We reunite. Well, I was, you brought this onto the table, and I was like, hello, beauty, we meet again. But I think this one is the fancier one than I had because I see the kill switches on here, which is super fancy, but the knobs and the crossfader and the whole layout. Yeah, this was it, man. Wow, I'm getting goosebumps. This this is the mixer I
like
started
the punch buttons and so on as well on there to cut across with the fader, because the faders used to wear out real quick on the mixers back in the day, right?
Wow. Oh, okay. This one is stuck even.
Yeah, it's not in the best condition.
But obviously, and you get a mixer like this and you're learning on vinyl, and it's like you spend so many hours trying to learn the art, and just the amount of time that I've seen these LEDs pop out and nightly hours of mixing on these crappy faders. Oh, look, it's stuck in. Nostalgia. It's real, man. Amazing.
Okay, this is representative of Vestax as an entire brand.
Really?
Well, this is just like, I could have bought out a Vestax turntable, or I have like 5 different Vestax mixers. I'm curious whether was Vestax ever a part of your DJ life in those early days?
No, it wasn't, because I'm not a scratch DJ, right? From the bottom up, I started as a techno DJ, and the only reason why I learned tricks is because of the techno DJs from that era, like Jeff Mills, Dave Clark, Frankie Bones. So I was never really into the whole Vestax thing, and I'm just testing out this crossfader because it feels like it's rusty.
Yeah, it is rusty. It's very in bad shape.
And the faders as well, but I love the look of it. This is something of like a Buck Rogers episode or something retro looking. Yeah, so no Vestax history for me, but I can imagine this being a very important piece.
This is the Novation Twitch. Yeah, so I feel like my thought is that this Twitch, along with the Control X1 from Native Instruments, is kind of a precursor to the Mixtour Pro in some ways, because it's done away with the jog wheels. This was a Serato itch controller from around, I think it was around 2011, something like that. It was my first controller I ever bought. And I'm curious your thoughts on this layout and what you think of this.
Fun fact, I actually wanted touch strips on the Mixtour Pro, but we didn't do it. This is very inspiring. I still want touch strips. So I never DJ'd on this or invested in this, because I was, in that day, I was heavily into the Pioneer landscape already, and mainly the flagship systems rocking, biggest festivals in the world. So I never got to experience like the laptop.
I was going to say, have you ever been a laptop DJ at any point?
I have tried DJing on Tractor back in 2003, 2004. It was very early days, and I just remember with the laptops from that time, it was just so crappy. And mainly the one time that I forgot to plug in my laptop, and it only had about 25 minutes of playtime. So mid-set, my laptop died, and I was like, this is not for me. I'll just stay on the USB sticks. But this is very inspiring. We can totally bring that back. Look, 8 hot cues, transport section here. Where's the EQs?
They are there. Up at the
top. Low,
yeah.
mid, high.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I love this.
Yeah.
It's not heavy either.
No. Fits in a record bag. That was my first take. The portable fits in a record bag along with your laptop, and that's all you need kind of controller. And now controllers are generally much larger, and that's why the Mixtour Pro is going down that more compact route. It is more portable like that, and I think a lot of gear, it doesn't need to be as big as it is for a lot of DJs, I think.
What would you do with the touch strips?
You pitch bend with them. You can kind of cue up at the beginning of a track, like drag it to the point in the track where you want to start and set a hot cue and stuff.
Okay, just making a note to steal every feature on this for future development.
So yeah, I did a Beatsource Tech retro video about this recently. It's from a British brand called Redsound, who also did the Cycloops loop sampler and a few other things. But this is the Tri-Fader module in the Infader mixer. It's actually the first digital DJ mixer, all digital. And it has 3 crossfaders, as you can see. Curious your thoughts on this one.
Well, we're back here now with DJ Pro, right? Because now we're starting to mix stems like this with separate crossfading, and it's fascinating they had that. And I must say, for an older unit, and I've touched the other units today, these feel great still. Such a quality build. all the knobs as well. Yeah, and it's funny because this type of concepts are maybe concepts that they try to make it work, and in that time it didn't, but it's coming back now. And
yeah, I mean, that was my take on it. I was, you know, because that's not mine. I borrowed it from somebody, and it was like, actually now, all these manufacturers around the late 90s, early 2000s were trying to pull all this stuff off in hardware, but now we have it in software instead, and it feels like that's where the innovation has moved to the software rather than the hardware. Do you think that's true?
Yes, absolutely. Furthermore, I have this stance where in the age of AI, it's going to become faster and faster the way software develops, and hardware is not able to keep it up. And also, you know, if you just look at the processing in CDJs, for instance, whereas like say a CDJ 4000 will come out today with a M whatever chip in there, within 2 or 3 years compared to the growth of AI, this will become obsolete. And so software in combination with hardware, like on a separate scale, yeah, that's going to become the very near future.
So this is one of my new old toys that I've just picked up recently, the Denon DN-M2000R mini disc deck, which has pitch control and hot cues and all this kind of stuff. It was basically trying to be like a double CD player, but you know, it was a mini disc version. I assume you never DJ'd with mini disc?
I have not. And mind you, what I love about this is that it looks like the Denon CD players, which were huge at that time, and those double deckers as well. And yeah, mini discs. Going from CDs to this was incredible for me as well, personally. I started recording my sets on mini disc. The whole notion of, and mind you, this was before we were able to burn stuff on CDs.
Yeah.
Mini discs came, and all of a sudden you could have your music recorded digitally on something that looked like a CD but was way tinier. And obviously with the players as well, and this was in the era where Walkmans became smaller and smaller, and with this format you could have Walkmans as small as this little square. And so yeah, this was a revolution, mini discs, and DJing with it, that sounds very interesting. And now I just want to pop this in here and have a go.
So this one obviously isn't an actual piece of DJ gear. It is the DJ Hero controller. Have you ever played DJ Hero to start with?
I have not.
You've never played it? This
is the first time ever I touched this unit. And how fun is it that there's so little buttons on there?
I'm just interested to hear what you think about the idea of like gamifying DJing, and is that a good way to get people into the world of DJing? I feel like now, you know, apps like DJ, they're just like another app or a game almost on your phone. Do you think that's a really good way of getting people into the world of DJing and ultimately music production and what have you?
Absolutely. I would love to see more of it nowadays. And it's funny because I had forgotten all about DJ Hero, and now I kind of want to try it. But yeah, the more of these things available, also, you know, if we could get a game that's based on producing, for instance, just to get people interested and to get people in there, absolutely. Let's keep DJing in the eyes of the people and to be interested to be interesting for the majority of people.
Because you're really into like bringing through the next generation, right? It's always been one of your things. You were doing like the forum back in the day. That's one of the reasons I feel like, you know, you established yourself as such a big name, because you were so open to helping out the next generation of DJs and producers. Is that something that you think people are doing enough in the industry?
No, and it's never enough because of the influx of the new generation. You see a lot of people struggling as well, and I would love to keep on helping people maneuver through this landscape. And you know what we are doing here with just having this type of nostalgia and emphasizing the fun of DJing and growing through it. That's where it's at, man. It's not even about the big stages, or it's about being in your bedroom trying to learn this craft. And experiencing different types of gear and seeing what works best for you. And also this type of gear, it's like, yeah, what else is there? And maybe you can go to controller after this, or hey, a Mixtour Pro. But yeah, whatever keeps it going, really.
And last question for you. Is there any piece of gear that I've put on this table today that you would give up your Mixtour Pro to play with instead?
There's none, but I love this stance because what we emphasize today is that even though I'm DJing on a piece of gear like the Mixtour Pro currently, there's still a landscape of old school DJ gear which you can go on to, like, you know, DJing on 45s or what you're doing now with the mini discs. And you can always go back to vinyl, you can always go back to CDJ 1000s, and it's like, just because there's an addition of new tech doesn't mean the old dies. And whatever you feel comfortable with in terms of DJing and how you can tell your story, that's just it, man. Now we're just two old men going down a rabbit hole, I'm sorry.